Right, so what we're going to look at now is, obviously there's a slight change of voice, it's Mr. Myers. We're going to put some marker on it. The principle with marker is, ideally you want to start with a flat tone. So I'm just going to turn the paper that way so it's just a little bit easy for me to do. So start at the back edge using the sort of chisel tip of it, and every stroke that you do needs to just go over ever so slightly over the previous one, so you start out with a nice flat tone. And what happens is, because these are spirit based markers, so they've got some alcohol in them, they will evaporate and hopefully you'll get an even tone. So when we've talked about rendering in the past, the light often comes from the top right hand side, so this edge is going to be lighter, this edge is going to be darker. So when you're using a marker, what you want to do is we'll go over it again a couple of times there, and then that one, if you take it to a 1, okay, so one sort of pass with your pen. To then build that up, you can then, down this bottom side, this side here will be much darker in reality than a couple of passes, so you just go over a couple of times down there and gradually just blend that edge out. You can see that edge there is sort of blending in a little bit. Now when you're doing this, one of the things why it might not be working perfectly on this is because we've got a plastic background, and the plastic background it causes it to bleed a little bit. Okay, so just be mindful of that. But that's not looking too bad there. Alright, so I'm just going to leave that. What I would do, if I was doing it for a presentation drawing, is I was actually get a white pencil crayon and just put some highlights on there, and maybe with a black pencil crayon just darken that edge up down there. Alright, that bit in the middle does need lightening up a bit. Now I've got for the top, it's a sort of a browny colour, which isn't ideal, but it'll do for what we're wanting to show. So on here, now because it's a slightly lighter colour, it is a bit easier with this one. And one of the things you can do with these markers is they've got a different tip on them, so you can actually work in a slightly smaller area a bit easier. But again, that we are seeing that sort of quite solid line. I know it's blended a little bit there, but if I was doing it, like I said, for a presentation drawing, you'd hope not to see that because it would actually just blend out. Now you can do this with felt tips. It is quite easy to do it with felt tips. With the felt tips, just remember you do need to keep going over them. And there's that top bit. I'm just changing the pen nib around. So obviously these are circular, so you may end up with the odd sort of darker streak. So that side is going to be darker. That top edge you might have a bit of darkness to it because it's it's circular from a plan point of view. If you can see there's a very slight white section there, which is what we're sort of trying to emulate with this. When you look at an object, a circular object, you do get some quite nice patches of light on it. So if we can try and get a few of those in there, sort of almost one of those happy sort of accidents really there. But you can do that with a white pencil crayon. What I'm going to just do on this one down here is just put a couple of darker streaks in down there. And a little bit on that edge. And it does take a bit of practice to get it right and to get it looking really good, but you know, we've got a reasonable amount of time to have a go at this. Now, if I was looking at doing something with the bottle side of it, obviously it will be quite dark. I'm not going to do all of this. I'm going to quite dark at that side there. And ideally try and sort of mirror what's going on. On your label. And again, when you're putting the pencil tone on, what you can do is you can use a rubber to create highlights. But just try and make sure that this is nice and flat and even, and it might mean that you do have to go over in a slightly different direction. This isn't ideal the direction that I'm doing it because it's not particularly comfy. So you'd get that on the bottom half as well. So you can see on here, if I went in here with a pencil, you can just darken up that edge a little bit. You know, that would be better with a very dark brown pencil crayon.